I've always been drawn to abandoned places. There's something about the decay, the forgotten history, that pulls me in. I'm an urban explorer, urbex they call it, and I've snuck into old factories, derelict hospitals, even a few ghost towns. But nothing prepared me for Pripyat, the city frozen in time after the Chernobyl disaster. I'd heard about the exclusion zone, the radiation, the risks. But when a contact offered me a way in illegally, without the tourist crowds or guides, I couldn't resist. He said it'd be the ultimate thrill. Spend a night in one of the most radioactive spots, Kindergarten number 7, right in the heart of Pripyat. It's infamous for its abandoned dolls and gas masks, scattered like relics from a nightmare. I figured it'd make for killer footage on my channel. What I didn't expect was how alive that place would feel. In the worst possible way, I crossed into the zone under cover of night, hiking through the red forest with my backpack, Geiger counter, and a cheap radiation suit I'd bought online. The air was thick, humid, even in the fall chill. My contact dropped me off at the edge of Pripyat and vanished, promising to pick me up at dawn. "Don't get caught," he warned, "and stay quiet. The patrols are real." The city was a skeleton, crumbling apartment blocks, overgrown streets, Ferris wheels rusting in the amusement park that never opened. But the kindergarten, that was something else. I found it after about an hour of wandering, guided by old maps on my phone. Kindergarten number 7 was a low, squat building, windows shattered, vines choking the entrance. My Geiger counter started clicking softly as I approached. Nothing crazy yet, but enough to remind me this wasn't just any ruin. Inside, it was like stepping into a time capsule from hell. Tiny chairs overturned, faded murals of smiling children on the walls, peeling and blistered from years of exposure. And the toys, hundreds of them. Dolls with cracked porcelain faces, stuffed animals matted with dust and mold, scattered across the floors like they'd been dropped mid-play. Gas masks too, small ones, child-sized, piled in corners as if ready for a drill that never ended. I knew some of this stuff was staged by other explorers for photos, but it didn't make it any less creepy. I set up camp in what looked like the main playroom, rolled out my sleeping bag on the floor, away from the windows in case of patrols. The radiation here was higher. My Geiger counter beeped sporadically, spiking near certain spots. I popped some iodine pills, figuring it'd help, and tried to film a bit, whispering into my camera about the eerie silence, how the place felt watched. By midnight, I was exhausted from the hike, so I lay down, the counter's occasional chirps lulling me like a twisted metronome. That's when it started. At first, I thought it was the wind, a soft rustling, like fabric shifting. I sat up, flashlight in hand, sweeping the beam across the room. Nothing, just the dolls staring back, their glass eyes reflecting the light. I chalked it up to nerves and tried to sleep again. But then, a creak, distinct, like a small footstep on the warped wooden floor. My heart rate spiked. I grabbed the Geiger, beeping faster now, but not alarmingly. Maybe an animal? Stray dogs roam the zone, I'd heard. I called out softly, "Hello." Silence. Then, from the corner, a doll's head turned. I swear it did. Slowly, like it was looking at me. I froze, telling myself it was a trick of the shadows, or maybe the building settling. But no. The doll was one of those old Soviet ones, with a faded dress and tangled hair. It had been facing the wall. Now it was angled toward me. Panic set in. I stood up, backing away, but the rustling spread. More dolls shifted, their limbs twitching faintly, like they were waking up. One on a shelf toppled over, landing with a soft thud, its eyes wide open. The gas masks, too, they clattered, as if something was stirring beneath the piles. My Geiger went nuts, screeching in high-pitched bursts, the needle pegged in the red. Radiation surge? Or something else? I grabbed my stuff, heart pounding, but as I turned to run, I heard whispers, tiny voices, like children giggling, echoing through the halls. "Igrai s nami," they said, Russian for play with us. I don't speak the language fluently, but I knew that phrase from old videos. I bolted out of there, tripping over toys that seemed to roll into my path. Outside, the night was alive with sounds, branches snapping, distant howls. I hid in the woods until dawn, Geiger still clicking, my skin itching like I'd been burned. When my contact picked me up, he laughed at my story, said it was radiation sickness playing tricks. Hallucinations are common, he claimed. But I checked my footage later. In the background, clear as day, a doll's arm moves. Just a twitch, but it's there. I never uploaded it. Some things are better left buried in the zone. Growing up in rural Maine, I was no stranger to isolation. My family owned a small cabin deep in the pines, passed down from my grandfather. It was our escape. Hunting, fishing, no cell service, just nature. But after my parents passed in a car accident, I stopped going. Too many memories. Until last winter, when I needed to clear my head after a bad breakup. I figured a solo weekend there would help me reset, pack some supplies, drive the 3 hours north, and unplug. What I didn't know was that the cabin had changed. Or maybe it had always been waiting for someone broken like me. I arrived at dusk, snow flurries starting to fall. The place looked the same. Log walls, stone fireplace, a single bedroom upstairs. I built a fire, heated some soup, and settled in with a book. The wind howled outside, but inside, it was cozy. Until around 11 p.m., when I heard the first whisper. It came from the walls, faint, like wind through cracks. But it wasn't wind. It was a voice. My mother's voice. "You shouldn't have yelled at me that night," it said. I dropped my book. That was the last fight we'd had, before the accident. I'd screamed at her over something stupid, stormed out. No one knew about that guilt except me. I chalked it up to exhaustion, the isolation messing with my head. But it didn't stop. As the night wore on, more voices joined. My father's, gruff and disappointed. "You let us down, son." My ex's, bitter. "I knew you'd cheat eventually." Things I'd never told anyone, buried deep. The whispers grew louder, coming from the floorboards, the ceiling, even the crackling fire. I searched the cabin, flashlight shaking, but found nothing. No hidden speakers, no signs of intruders. Outside, the snow had piled up, trapping me. The temperature dropped inside, despite the fire blazing. By 2 a.m., the voices were screaming my secrets. Childhood lies, regrets, dark thoughts I'd had in my lowest moments. "You wished we were dead sometimes," my mother's voice accused. I curled up in the bedroom, blankets over my head, but they followed. Shadows danced on the walls, forming shapes like faces I recognized. I must have passed out from the stress, because I woke at dawn to silence. The snow had stopped, and I fled, leaving everything behind. I sold the cabin months later. But the buyer backed out after one night, claiming the place talked. I looked into the history. Turns out, my grandfather built it on old native land, a burial site disturbed during construction. Locals whispered about a curse, spirits that feed on guilt. I don't go back to Maine anymore. Some secrets should stay buried.